You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 265 of Arsenal Pass. Hayden Dale here with Pankaj Bhojwani. As always, Pankaj, the band is back together. 1 week of not recording and it already feels like a month without you.
I'm surprised why it feels so long. We've done stints before where either one of us takes like a few weeks off in a row, but for some reason this 1 week felt like a really long time. Glad to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back on the show. This week, of course, we are in the swing of preview season for Omens of the Third Age. We have many cards to discuss and start to look at what the impact of Omens may be. What are our favorites so far? What are our first impressions? What are we thinking? And maybe what do we like a little bit less of? All to come in the pod today. But before we get into that, Pankaj, this week in Flesh and Blood, what's been going on?
It's continued to be very, very light. Last week I mentioned that I started playing Hades since it came to console while we were in Japan and been enjoying that a lot. However, we've had some previews since then. So I'll have you know, I have updated my Marlin and Fang deck lists. And every now and then I've been goldfishing them with the changes. Because I don't want to brew any of the new heroes yet because we don't have enough. But at least from like Marlin or Fang, it seems like we have everything we're going to get. Right, we have the Ranger action and we have the Pirate Ranger arrow. That was our spoiler. And then we have the recently spoiled Draconic Instant for Fang.
Yep.
So yeah, I've been kind of just been goldfishing. That's the extent to which I've been engaging with Flesh and Blood. What about you?
Literally less. Say less. Yeah, this is true downtime, and I said it. I called it. I'm going to take this time to have that downtime. No games played by me. Watched a little bit of Jakarta, very minimal amounts, and then I have also been looking at previews and just starting to think about what I think about some of these cards, so we can discuss them. Thinking about the heroes, and that is it. But from next weekend, once we hit this world premiere and we have all the cards available, we are into it. Like, I will be fully into testing. So I'm going to enjoy this next week of basically not engaging with the game that I love so much, except for doing this podcast with you, Pankaj, and reading spoilers and starting to open up some creating mini February deck lists to start brewing with.
Yeah, I have a few. I think I have an Accelio deck list that's about like 30 cards in, and I have a Ziggy deck list that's about 40 cards in.
That sounds so similar to what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just that, which I know I'm going to overhaul the entire thing once we actually get the full set, particularly like whatever legendaries that they're built around, which I'm sensing there's going to be one very similar to Gold-Baited Hook is my idea. Probably some marquee legendary piece, lightning legendary equipment that all three heroes will use. Similar to Traverse the Universe as well, which I guess was maybe just a Zen Enigma thing, but you know, that level of equipment.
Yep.
And until we get that, we can sort of make our 30, 40 card deck lists, and I feel like we're going to change like half of it, half of even that much. But yeah, have started looking at that as well. We have about a week and a half before we get deep into brewing and testing, as you said, because we have not only Classic Constructor, but Limited as well to practice as we lead up into National Season. So yeah, definitely enjoying this current downtime that we have.
Perfect. Well, that said, Pankaj, should we get on to the news this week? I mean, there's not a lot happening in Flesh and Blood right now because we are in the true kind of grey zone between the end of a season and the start of the next.
Yeah, so for the news this week, we have, Calling Jakarta happened this past weekend. Congratulations to Jake McCormack for taking it down on Kasai, of all heroes. Not a hero I would have expected to take it down going into the weekend. And this coming weekend, we have Calling Sao Paulo, so tune in for that. It is our last CC event before Omens drops. So tune in to see, I don't know, maybe Accelio take it down one last time.
Yeah, no Accelio in the top 8 last weekend, right, in Jakarta.
Yeah,
so, which is wild.
That was super interesting.
But I had heard that was maybe a bit of a function of the meta there in Jakarta as well. And what back-to-back callings to have as well, two of the most passionate communities in Flesh and Blood with the Indonesian community and then the Brazilian community this coming weekend. So excited to see this final calling of this format. Well, we get one last sort of twist in the tail before we head to Omens of the Third Age.
Yeah, the vibes of both these regions it's contagious. I'm like, while Sao Paulo might not be the most exciting meta-wise, because it's a pretty much solved, kind of solved meta.
Yeah.
We say that in Correia won this past weekend, but what I mean is there isn't going to be many more events after this in this current meta, so on that front might not be so exciting, but I'm definitely going to tune in purely because of the energy and the contagiousness of how excited the community there is. Like, I still remember last time when Kadu won calling Sao Paulo, and the camera was shaking because everyone came and gave him a hug at the feature table. It was so cool. I'm going to tune in, honestly, mostly purely for that. Aside from that, in the news, we have our final skirmish results. We have Ira, Icelander, and Briar as our top 3 most winning decks from skirmish in Silver Age, with Ira being firmly ahead out of the other 2. And actually with that, there was a piece of news that actually came out last week, which we didn't discuss last week. I think it was we recorded just a little bit after, a little bit before. They announced the voting, voting weekend, which I believe is, I want to say a week or 2 from now. There's a 48-hour period where you can vote for one hero. You vote for one, and then the heroes that will be banned will be the top 3 heroes in terms of votes. They'll be
benched. They'll be benched. They're not banned. They're benched.
They'll be benched. So we're coming up to a pretty exciting time as it comes to Silver Age. Do you have any preliminary thoughts of what do you think would be banned, or what do you think should be banned?
I don't have thoughts on what I think should be banned. Like what I would say, like, oh, you should ban these heroes, bench them. Sorry, but the heroes that I think will get benched: Kano, Ira, and toss up between Briar and Ultim. I don't think KO is going to end up getting benched, which is interesting. And I think Ira will actually be the 3rd. I think it'll actually be close because people really like Ira, so won't be voting for it as much. But I think because it is the deck that has been doing the best over the last few weeks, I think it's probably going to end up getting benched because I think a lot of people are trying to play decks and being like, it just doesn't work against Ira. So that's why I think that'll happen. What about you?
At first, I didn't think Ira would be banned, but Marco last week, the Techno Foundry, did convince me that Ira is probably going to go. So I think she will be benched. But I think regardless, even if she doesn't get benched somehow by the community, I think LSS will do something about her if she's alive. So regardless, I don't think she's staying in her current form.
They love Ira. Dude.
I think
they love Ira. They might ban some cards, but they love Ira as a hero.
Yeah. I think they'll adjust her, but I don't think she'll remain untouched regardless, whether it's from the community or from LSS. Something will be happening to this hero. She won't be in exactly the same state that we know her. They might just ban Kadachis and be like, she has to play Edge of Autumn or something. I don't know. And then I see Icelander at 2nd. I'm just worried people will ban her. I hope they don't. But I agree with that. I think Kano and Oldhim are more hated than Icelander, but you know, she's putting up the results. And I know many people would be frustrated playing against Icelander, just like how it was in CC. So just fingers crossed that she doesn't get banned. But my guess would be Ira, Oldhim, Kano as like just I think the most Ira just because she's so far and away the best currently, and then Oldhim in terms of results at least, and then Oldhim and Kano just because I think they spark the emotional reaction from people, an aversion to these playstyles.
Kano's really good as well. Is the other thing. But yeah, people hate playing against Kano and Ultim. I do think people really don't like playing against Briar either, which will be interesting to see. It's quite a polarizing hero.
True, and what's really funny is that Briar's actually having a Silver Age starter deck come out, right?
Sure.
The next season. So if she does get benched and then that intro deck comes out, that deck actually isn't legal. Because while they said they wouldn't ban stuff from the starter decks,
they didn't say anything about
from the
heroes.
pre-cons, they didn't say that we aren't allowed to vote for those heroes, so I'm still voting for Gravy Bones, just all out of principle. So here we go. I hope that hero just gets benched, and it's like because he's also having a pre-con come out, so you know
that's crazy.
It'll be funny.
So are you actually voting? Because I was going to say, which hero are you voting for? Like seriously?
Yeah, I'm probably just voting for Gravy Bones.
That's insane. I will be casting in the essence of what I like to see in terms of an interesting format and a shake-up in the format. I think that I will be voting for Briar because we're getting more lightning cards in this set, and there's even a couple of cards already that I think are quite good. And I think I'm just interested in seeing a change up in the aggro decks that people will play. So I think my vote's probably going Briar at the moment, but we'll see.
Well, who are we kidding? Chain's getting unbenched, and he's just going to be taking over the entire format.
Actually, do you get a vote? Do you get a vote?
Do I get to vote?
Yeah, have you played a Silver Age event?
Yeah, I played side events at the Pro Tour.
Okay, all right.
You're like, you're trying to take away my gravy bones vote? What the heck?
I mean, I couldn't care less. It's not going to have any impact. You're basically, it's like when people vote for a political party that's like way off the trail. Like, they're like, I voted for this party.
Yeah.
Like, your vote literally doesn't count.
I'm still scarred from gravy bones and CC, and so this is literally just me venting from that. I'm still scarred from the release and how long it took for anything to happen to the hero.
All right.
And how he should be at double the points. You know what? Let's not get into that right now. We should move on to the Commander
Cookout time. If you want to get your questions in for the Commander Cookout, make sure you do so. You can get them in to us by dropping them in the YouTube comments below if you are a video watcher. If you're an audio-only listener, perhaps on Spotify, you can get them in to the Spotify comment section. I go and check those regularly to pick up your questions. If you want to send us an email, arsenalpassfab@gmail.com. Perhaps you see us in person at your next event and you want to give us a question, as we've had many through the past few events, like Japan, for instance, at the Pro Tour. You can get your questions in that way. If you're an Arsenal Pass patron, make sure you get into the Patrons Discord and drop your question into the channel there for your Commander Cookout questions. The question this week comes from last week's episode, actually, with Marco Pankaj that you did from Cookout, I'm going to say. Dude, some of these names, sometimes I get so scared. Question for the pod. The people need a debrief on Pankaj's Fang journey. I don't think we ever saw a list, the thought process for what style of Fang Pankaj played. What does Pankaj enjoy about Fang over, say, Kasai? It's a very different deck from Icelander, Nu, and Marlin. What are his thoughts on Fang post Omens release? Edit. Huge appreciation for Marco. I've learned so much about the game from his Silver Age videos. Pankaj, this question is all about you, and I wanted to ask the question this week because you already called it, but we have a new Fang card that has been printed or is coming our way in Omens of the Third Age, and also I just thought it was a great question.
Oh. So my Fang pick that meta was really just a meta call. It was the meta where Florin was still around and very, very popular. And Gravy was also around because it was like trying to prey on the Florins. And I was picking Fang because I think it was very good into Florin and very good into Gravy Bones. And my idea back then was that I thought he was good or at least even into Mario. That was part of the reason, which turned out to not be fully accurate. He turned out to be not actually as good into Mario as I thought, actually straight up unfavored into Mario. But regardless, the point stands where it was mostly for the Florin and Gravy piece of the metagame. But once Florin LL'd, I moved off the deck because that was the main thing in the meta that I was trying to prey on. And I could no longer do that. It was also the meta where some people were actually playing around with Kasai as well, and Fang also beats Kasai. So I just thought it was a very strong meta pick. Well, I do enjoy the hero. I mean, it is a warrior after all, and I do enjoy the sort of accumulating advantage type playstyle that warrior does offer. It was a meta call piece, and then once Florin LL'd, it didn't seem like there was any reason to be playing Fang.
Cool.
But in terms of post-Omens release, I think the new Draconic Instant has a lot of promise. However, Fang doesn't do very well into Arcane, and it looks like all three of the new heroes are pretty Arcane heavy, or at least have elements of Arcane. So jury's out on whether Fang can, race them maybe fast enough, which I think is unlikely. So I don't know. I don't have too much hope regarding his place in the metagame after this, especially since I think Mario will still be around and still be pretty strong. And while Blunton was very good for that matchup, it's not enough to flip it and make Fang favored. And then if you bring in a bunch of arcane damage into the format, I think Fang might still stay perhaps on the bench for me.
Yeah, what do you think of, we're going to talk previews in this pod, but let's just get Draco Fire out of the way now there while we're here. We're going a little bit out of sequence. That's fine. What do you think of Draco Fire? Because I know a lot of the Fire truthers in my area are like, oh, is this a Fire card? And I looked at this and was like, this is a Fang card. What do you think?
This is certainly a Fang card. I think it's very good before getting online. I think this slam dunk is better Tooth of the Dragon before you're online. Mm-hmm. My concern is after you're online, I'd rather have Tooth of the Dragon.
No, the card sucks when you're online, dude. The card sucks when you're online. right?
Well, it's a 1 point less Tooth of the Dragon. So would you say Tooth of the Dragon sucks?
Well, for 1 point less, it is.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So it's not great unless you can find something to actually pay the one resource for.
Yeah.
And so I think for that reason, we might see a shift towards Hunter x Hunter actually being a 3 of in the main board, because it's pretty cool to go. You send your on your second dagger when you're online. You play this, and then you Hunter x Hunter for 7, which marks them immediately. So I could see that being a play pattern. And Hunter x Hunter is already a card that I know some people favored quite a bit. Like Mara, for example, in her Fang list really like that card already. So Dracofire, I think, gives more of a reason for that. But it does feel... I did do a search for other one-cost Draconic attacks that Fang could play.
So many.
And Hunter x Hunter's the only one, basically. The others are not worth really thinking about. Some of them are like Phoenix Flame related. It's like whatever, which you're never going to play. So...
Or they're the cost reduction ones, right? Which... Okay.
Yeah. So it's like... It's definitely very good before online, and I do think you can't fit this and Tooth of the Dragon, so I think it's pretty much a 1-to-1 replacement, where you cut Tooth of the Dragon and put this in. Maybe you have a couple of Tooths maybe in the sideboard for like certain matchups, but you also can't go too high on too many instants, right? It's just not great to do that. So that's my take on Dracofire. An upgrade, probably, because post... Like, I will take a point less post online, like that's whatever, if you make my pre-online smoother, you know? So I would consider this an upgrade, but not like a insane amount. But I think it also warrants changing the list a little bit to support Hunter x Hunter, because that goes very well with this card, even post online.
Mm-hmm.
That's my analysis.
Will the people ever see a Pankaj Fang list? Because people have demanded it. They demanded it, Pankaj, and you never gave it to them.
Well, yeah, because the last time I played Fang, turned out I was fully wrong about the Mario matchup, and then I didn't do so well at the calling. If I do well enough, I guess I did win a ProQuest on Fang. Was it ProQuest on RTN? I don't remember. It was like one of those. So maybe I could have. But okay, if I play Fang again, all right, I'll put out a list. At this point, though, that list obviously is very different.
All right, fair enough. All right, we'll see. We'll see. Great question, and a nice question for Pankaj there. If you want to get your questions in for the Commander Cookout, please do so. YouTube comments, Spotify comments, email, arsenalpassfab@gmail.com. See us in person. Drop us a note. Make sure your name's on it so we can read it out on the pod and let everyone know who that question came from. Or you can drop into the Patrons Discord if you're an Arsenal Pass Patreon subscriber. Right, Pankaj, it is time to get into the main topic of the pod this week. And we've got to get on to talking about these previews because we're going to try and get through a number of them. Very exciting cards. But before we get into the preview cards themselves, I want to hit just first sort of like thoughts as the preview season has unfolded. And something you mentioned to me that you wanted to talk about is the structure of this preview season. One thing I love that LSS does is we change it up every now and again. We do the preview seasons differently. We've done, specific hero weeks. We've done specific hero like days. We've done spread out more, some earlier, some later, some like evenly spread out. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this season in particular.
So I want to contrast with previous seasons where I wasn't very happy with the previous season was done, which was, I think the ones I remember the most where in the weeks leading up, we're just getting a very slow drip of some expansion slot cards. And then 3 days before the world premiere, we're just getting day after day of like 50 spoilers a day or something. I didn't really enjoy that because I just felt like I don't know what was happening coming up in the set. I'm sure I'm getting an expansion slot card every now and then. But in terms of the actual heroes, I don't know what they're up to until basically just before the world premiere. And at that point, I'm like, we're basically at the world premiere already. So it's like, sure, this doesn't feel like I got really hyped for the set. There wasn't enough time. So what I do like about this season was that it did start earlier. Like we are seeing the Acilio and the Ziggy and the Aurora cards well before the set, and it is making me more hyped for the set and to tune in for the world premiere. What I don't like is that I feel like this has gone maybe a bit too far in the opposite direction, where it's a little too spread out. Like, this is over like 3 weeks. I feel like we've been getting this, in a sense, slow drip of the support for the newer heroes. And I feel like, I'm just spitballing here, but I feel like a nice sweet spot would be like 10 days. Like, give me a bunch of these spoilers over 10 days instead of 3 weeks. Because the first week, it just feels like there's not enough to like actually understand what the heroes do anyway. But if it's like over 10 days, it just feels like you can give us enough to start thinking about interactions between cards, thinking about hero identities, thinking about play patterns, like for example, seeing Tempestuous Quiz and the seeing like the quick strike cards, and then seeing the new Skies cards and the new Mauve Skies card, that immediately tells you, oh, it seems like this Aurora is a little bit more in the Viscerai style of Runeblade. So it's nice to get that little nugget a little bit before the world premiere. And I want like more of that, but not spread it over like 3 weeks, because it took us like a full week to get that one nugget about Aurora. It'd be nice if it was over a couple of days. Okay, now we have this. Oh, that's so interesting. And then keep that going. So I feel like a week and a half to 2 weeks would be like a nice ideal time, instead of either 3 days or 3 weeks. That's just my take. But overall, to your point, I'm glad that they switch it up, see what the community likes and what the community engages with more. And I think this is better at least than a concentrated 3 days. This thing could be maybe slightly less wide.
I like piecing it together. So I agree. I think what I struggle with sometimes is like, okay, there's a big, we get something like at the keynote, right? And in Yokohama, and it's like, okay, all these extras. So we got a little teaser at the start, like a few weeks before that. Love that. Then we get this like kind of injection of like, oh, this is how the format plays. Love that too, right? And then as we go over the following weeks, it's like, oh, here's a preview of the calling, or here's this. And people do love that stuff, and people are always asking for it in the stream. So I'm like, okay, all right. I actually kind of get that. But then, to your point, like 2 weeks ago, we started to get some of the previews. I mean, our preview now at this point, by the time this pod drops, was almost like a week and a half ago. And there was more previews before even ours. And I think what I would prefer to have is all those first lots of things. But then once that preview season starts, I would have started it like 3 or 4 days later, personally, maybe even 5 days later. And then I would have done it in the blocks. I really like where they go, okay, this is like the 3 or 4 days of Aurora. This is the 3 or 4 days of Ziggy. This is the 3 or 4 days of Basilio. These are the 2 days of expansion cards. I really like that stuff, because I think it just gives... I find it way easier to engage with the previous season and start to think about the heroes and how I might build the decks and things like that. So that's my personal standpoint. So yeah, I agree. A little bit shorter and a little bit maybe better in the structure as well, personally.
I like the blocky nature as well. Not the 1 day full of spoilers, but yeah, to your point, 2 or 3 days of it is nice. I do get maybe perhaps the conundrum that they're facing, because I do think they try and have these big spoilers now. I think we're seeing them shift towards not having the legendaries being spoiled by the official streams rather than certain content creators, which I think is a cool direction to go towards.
But I could see why that of legendaries.
Yeah, but I could see why that potentially causes a bit of a conundrum with the whole scheduling and the structure of it, because if they only want to show the legendary at like a calling stream, then you kind of need to structure your preview season around the calling streams that you are having. Otherwise, you're not showing off the potentially some of the marquee cards, right? So I could see why maybe that's why it's stretched out a little bit longer. I'm not sure. They're playing around with it. I'm sure they'll land on something that would be really, really awesome.
Yeah, fair. What's your first thoughts on Omens so far? Now that we're getting further into this preview season and we're seeing... Let's maybe leave the expansion cards to the side for now. We'll cover some of those. But maybe just in general, Omens of the Third Age itself.
Yeah, so I want to make sure we contextualize the discussion, which is that they did announce a whole bunch of pre-bannings before the set drop. So I think it's important to remember that as we consider these cards, because I don't think I'm alone in thinking that at least the cards that we've seen so far don't seem crazy overwhelming and crazy overpowered. However, they did pre-ban a bunch of stuff, which tells me I think we can expect some really scary stuff coming down the line. I'm waiting.
I'm waiting, Pankaj. I'm waiting.
Yeah, I mean, my expectation is still that this is going to be the MST or the High Seas, which also, by the way, are we continuing this trend of every mid-year set is just going to be turbo busted and fully upends the meta, like MST did and then High Seas did,
yes,
and now it seems like Omens might do too?
We spoke about this. We even spoke about this with James.
And I remember this, right? So MST, Traverse the Universe, was not a card that we saw in preview season at all. We saw it at the world premiere. It was a shaky, blurry, pixelated photo that came out in the card reveals channel of your Discords.
Miragai
That's when we saw Traverse the Universe. No, Miragai was Mara's spoiler. We did see Miragai.
People just didn't realize how busted that was. I remember playing that in like the world premiere, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's broken."
Yeah, and well, partly because we hadn't seen Traverse yet.
Yes,
we saw Mirror Guide, but we didn't see Traverse. And so I'm looking at some of these cards, and I'm thinking, still the big question, how are these heroes making lightning flows? Like, for High Seas, I don't remember when we saw Gold-Baited Hook, but that's a big part of how Gravy Bones continues the gold train going, right? It's part of why he's so strong. And we don't have the Marquee Lightning Legendary piece yet of the set. Like the Traverse the Universe equivalent or the Gold-Baited Hook equivalent. And so until we get that, I am not going to say, oh, the set looks underwhelming or doesn't look as strong, because I want to contextualize we haven't seen a Marquee Lightning Legendary piece, and they pre-banned a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm still in the camp of expecting the set to be really, really strong, despite the current cards at least not seeming so. I think we're still just lacking a key piece of how they accumulate the resources that need to accumulate and certain interactions that works with these resources.
Yeah, I'm waiting for when you block with this create 3 lightning flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think my sort of first thoughts is Acilio looks underwhelming to me, just from taking a macro standpoint. But to your point, we still haven't seen many of the things that we're potentially waiting for. I'm not so sure. Okay.
I see him if I see him get a few, like, have a good lightning flow generation, I could see him being a very scary deck. I actually think he might be a Striders deck. And in a card like Arc Ramp, if you have the lightning flows to support it, you're just sending 8-9 Arcane on your turn, and then you have Striders as well and a bunch of little instant pings on your opponent's turn. That sounds really scary to me if he can make the lightning flows.
Yeah, we'll get into those cards, I guess, like Arc Ramp. Yeah, to be fair, every hero but Aurora, and maybe this is why, feels like we're missing the generation of lightning flow, to your point. Every time that there's this new resource comes into it, and Aurora, I guess, doesn't necessarily need that as much as the other heroes do, right? Like, we spoke about this, it's probably a nice to do a couple of times a game, but maybe even say there is equipment that's like, 2-block Blade Break, create a lightning flow, or create 2 lightning flow. That may not even see play in Aurora, right? Depending on what it's competing against. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, could be. Actually, so here's the thing, even like Aurora, like Mercurial Skies, I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, we're already starting to talk about some cards, but Mercurial Skies to me is one of those cards that if she has good lightning flow generation, you would play Mercurial Skies, and if she doesn't, then you probably just play Marvin Skies, right? Because a lot of people are like, why would you play Marvin Skies versus Mercurial Skies? Well, the big advantage of Mercurial Skies is that can trigger off your Quick Strike Arcane pings. Mercurial Skies doesn't say hit, it says deals damage. And so your little cards, your attacks that have Arcane pings on them, unlike Marvin Skies, which needs to hit to generate a 3 rune chance, these ping effects can also trigger the claws to let you destroy lightning flow to deal 3 Arcane to your opponent.
Yeah.
So if Aurora gets these lightning flows as well, then Mercurial Skies gets pretty insane, where each lightning flow is kind of effectively 3 Arcane. And also, to turn on all these quick strikes consistently, we saw Viscerai sometimes struggle with this, right? You don't draw your non-attack that gives your attack go again, and then your turn just feels kind of bricky. And if lightning flows are her way to make sure that she can consistently do the attack with go again into sword or like non-attack, whatever that play pattern, then yeah, I don't know. She also is going to be fairly hungry for it seems like, and we're still missing that piece. Yeah.
Do you think Aurora plays creepers from what you're seeing so far? Spellbound creepers?
I think I could see it. That would be really, really cool. It might be that they're maybe going back to the classic Runeblade with a non-attack thing, and in the same vein, Acilio to me so far from what you've seen also reads a little bit like a Striders deck. So if they're sending both the Runeblade and the Wizards back into the little bit more of the traditional Runeblade and Wizard that we've come to expect, that would be really, really cool.
I'm kind of here for
and
that. Yeah,
Aurora, and Aurora does need to pitch, right?
Yes.
These quick strike cards that we're seeing are cards that cost resources. She doesn't seem like she'll be a mono 0 for 4 deck, which does mean that Creepers is very much on the table, especially if she wants to run these non-attacks. I'll be very happy to see her play Creepers.
Interesting. All right, well, we've got many of those cards to get onto. Any other final thoughts from a macro standpoint of... I realize you misunderstood my note there. From a macro standpoint of Omens of the Third Age so far that you want to talk about before we go to cards specifically?
Yeah, for context, Hayden put in the show notes, what macro are we most excited about? And I said, there's only one macro. What are you talking about? I think the Ziggy piece is still a big question mark. Actually, a big question mark for all three heroes. Maybe less so for Acilio, if he has Tall Arcane, is they seem quite fatigable. All their weapons are not weapons that you can always just attack with, right? So they don't have the onboard consistent damage, which means that they are inherently, like definitionally almost, fatigable. And Acilio, I think, if he can pull together Tall Arcanes, would be quite tough to fatigue, because at some point there's inevitability there, like a whole bunch of dominate effectively. The other two, though, there's a big question, particularly Ziggy, because Ziggy's weapon, unlike previous illusionists, isn't, oh, you let me have my board state, I'm just going to go wide with the board state. He needs to keep they need to keep flickering them, but also they can only flicker them once, because then they have a holo counter on them, and you can't flicker them again when they have a holo counter. So what are Ziggy's and Aurora's game plans into fatigue, right, is the big question. So that's a macro that I guess I'm excited to uncover to see how they're going to solve that, if that answers that.
Did you say Ziggy and Aurora, or Ziggy and Acilio? Sorry.
Ziggy and Aurora. I think Acilio, at least just from what we've seen so far, you tell me a deck has Tall Arcane and potentially Striders.
Yeah.
I feel like that's difficult to fatigue, in my opinion.
Sure. I guess the question is, like, is Aurora playing Scorpio, or is it playing playing a different weapon?
Reaping Blade is getting banned, right?
I'm
pretty sure Reaping Blade is getting banned.
It is. You have Nebula Blade?
Then, well,
Nebula Blade's gone. Nebula Blade's gone because it's the weapon, right?
Was it Viscerai's weapon?
Yeah.
No. Was it? Okay. Yeah, so I don't think Aurora has a weapon that will leave her not susceptible to fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not legal in class constructed because it's the weapon of Viscerai. So yeah, I guess there's a limited amount of weapons that you can actually play, which is quite interesting with Reaping Blade being banned.
Yeah. Ziggy might have what's a reality refract? No, iris, like an iris sideboard maybe. If people want to try and like fatigue them, I don't know. I saw some people theory crafting that, but yeah.
Interesting. So iris of reality is not because
question.
it's right because they unbanned it, right? Effectively, they unattached it. Is that right?
There is an illusionist weapon that lets them attack with illusionist auras. Maybe it's not iris, maybe it's a different one. But I know there is. I saw some people theory crafting with a weapon like that for Ziggy.
Yeah.
To leave them to solve the fatigue problem, which I'm a bit skeptical about. I feel like there should be a way to solve the fatigue problem with Aphrodite.
Yep.
I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll have to see. Iris is legal in class constructed. I'm trying to cast my mind back to why Iris is legal. I'd have to go and check the signature weapon. I would say honestly the changes they made with like signature weapons and stuff like that always confuse me.
Well, Prism's signature weapon is Luminaris, right? So actually, Iris should just be legal, right?
That's why. There you go.
Prism?
Makes sense. I was like, why is Iris not the signature weapon? Right, because it was the limited weapon, but we also had the majestic weapon attached to that. Yeah. It's the only hero that's, I guess, Chain as well. Yeah, but no one's playing that another hero. Yep. Okay, so that makes sense because Duskblade was already banned. Anyway, okay. Let's get on to some of the cards. And I think we're going to start with Unwinding Finality, I think.
Mm-hmm. So Unwinding Finality, 0 cost, red, majestic, lightning, illusionist, action, attack. Attacks for 5, blocks for 3. Has when this hits, draw a card. Just straight up snatch. And whenever this fragments, because it is fragment, you may put a lightning instant card from your graveyard on top of your deck. So the 5 power with fragment is interesting because a 3 block basically means you've covered up the on-hit entirely. However, it means you do allow the opponent to put an instant card on top of the deck because you fragmented it. And at the same time, Ziggy does have pumps. We've already seen Auric Shards. We've seen the new Lightning Press, effectively. So what this potentially lets them do is if you let this fragment and then they have the combat trick, they basically like to get to set up what they draw from this on-hit effect. Because they'll fragment first, they'll put the card on top, play their pump, and then draw the card that they put on top. And depending how that goes, then they might even play that immediately because what's being put on top is an instant card. So while Unwinding Finality doesn't have natural go again, they could just play the instant that they draw off of this. So there's an interesting maybe combination that the Ziggy could do there. I feel like it would be fairly telegraphed though, because if you're sending this and you're holding back a bunch of cards, they obviously have the pump, and then maybe the opponent doesn't let you fragment it. I don't know, but then it's overrate straight up. So curious interplay happening there already, but I think this card's pretty strong is my current read of it, and I think it offers a lot of interaction. It's something I mentioned about Fragment when we first saw it already, was I do like how interactive it makes Illusionist feels compared to the very binary Phantasm and Spectra.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you've got a card like, I'm not going to bring it up, but Auric Shards, which is the Lightning Illusionist instant aura 1 cost that is the pump. Has Ward 1, but is also pump. So it's like if you have that on the table and then you have like floating resources and a card in hand, and your opponent's like, well, if I block this, they're just going to flick and pump it. If I don't, are they going to play something else? I think there's just so many different things. I think Ziggy feels like the sort of deck that really intrigues me when I see cards like this. And this is why I want to start with this card of like, I really like stuff that can be there's a lot of different lines too. My opponent has to kind of work out the lines, and there's a lot of different things you could be doing. So I'm really into it.
It's a very interesting draw a card effect, because normally you want to send something like a Snatch on an empty hand. But I don't think you want to send this on an empty hand, because they just put a 3 block in front of it and say, I know you have no trick.
Yeah.
Right? So it's funny how this draw a card effect actually wants to be played while you have cards in hand and not necessarily action points remaining even, which I think is pretty interesting design space.
Yeah, you can even do stuff like if you have, say, just 2 resources floating, you might flick your aura that allows you to pump, and then you draw the card and you just pitch it to your Aphrodite, for instance, right? Like stuff like that, where it's just like, well, I drew the card and it's just worth 2 damage. There's just so many interesting things. I think Ziggy's looking really interesting to me, and I think this card is, depending on the playstyle, I think this card is lined up to be very, very strong from what I'm seeing so far.
Speaking of interesting Ziggy cards, let's move on to Corrosive Space Dust, which is 1 cost, red, Lightning Illusionist instant aura. When this leaves the arena, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero, and it has ward X, where X is 4 if this has a hollow counter, otherwise X is 1.
This card's good.
One interesting thing about Ziggy is that it does feel like a lot of their auras are pretty garbage if you don't flicker them.
Yep, I'd agree. And that's where it's going to come down to. That's what I'm saying, like, how good is Ziggy is really going to depend on the ability to create lightning flow, because if you don't have a bunch of lightning flow just ready, or the value of lightning flow is really high, and we'll get onto a card that generates lightning flow, these cards suck.
Yeah, also the resource curve is interesting, right? This is 1 cost. Auric Shards is also 1 cost. The hero ability costs 2, then Aphrodite costs 1. So if you are trying to play a 1 cost and flicker it on the turn you play it and activate Aphrodite, that's 4 resources, which is pretty awkward. So it almost seems like they're incentivized to not flicker it the turn you actually play this. So you play this, you do something else.
Yeah.
And then you have a clean curve of pitch to hero ability plus the weapon on a future turn, which does put quite a bit of taxation on the play pattern and the texture that your hands need to be. Because if you draw a few of these 1 costs, it's very inefficient for you to activate a hero ability with it. What else are you doing with the resources? It's lots of questions. I almost wonder, that almost makes me think we might see a Dead Threads type effect, or maybe a Blood Splattered Vest type effect, where maybe if you've destroyed a lightning flow this turn, you can tap this chess piece and gain a resource. And maybe it's Blood Splattered Vest gated, where you can do this 3 times a game, maybe. Or maybe it's literally Death Threads, and it's just gated by the number of lightning flows you can create over the course of the game, which would be crazy. But I do wonder whether we're going to see something. Just because this 4 cost thing seems real weird. And Aurora has a similar thing going on as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But the resource code is just awkward, right? Like, Tempestuous Quest costs 2, the hero ability costs 2. Like, where are you getting this extra resource from? Yeah.
Either that, or this is just a limited card, because as we know, Omens of Arcana, the macro for the set, makes that all lightning flow tokens get spell void 1, right? So we're just going to enter this dance where, you know, cards like this are just really strong because they come into play, they ping and threaten your opponent's lightning flow token, and then at some point they turn into a really strong ward effect, or they flicker to pink. Like, this might just be a limited card at the end of the day, but I think it's a card that's very interesting. Should we go into a card that is almost certainly going to have impact, though, and that is Tempestuous Kiss, which is a Lightning Runeblade action attack. At Majestic, it costs 2, 5 attack, 3 defense, and has Quick Strike, which is, if this card has Go Again, it gets +1 attack, and when this attacks a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. And the first time this deals arcane damage to a hero, they discard a card. So, a lot going on here. Base, 2 cost, 5 power, kind of rubbish, right? But Quick Strike, of course, gives it +1, and when it attacks, deal 1 damage. So all of a sudden, you're at a 2 cost 7 threaten with Quick Strike. And then as well, if you deal arcane damage, when it deals damage, either the arcane or the on hit of itself, they will discard a card. So yeah, this card is quite good.
Yeah, if you're able to give this Go Again, you basically take tempo for that turn, or you force them to discard a card, and then it's incredibly overrate. I mean, it's already overrate when you give it Go Again because of 7. But again, here's where how the heck is this hero getting Go Again? Because I think when people first saw this card, there was a lot of, oh my god, Runeblade's getting everything again. Now, obviously the card's very good, but if you look at Aurora's hero text, if you look at Mercurial Skies, Marvin Skies, all these Go Again effects cost her a full card, effectively.
Yep.
Except the hero ability, but the hero ability is 2 resources and a lightning flow. It's very probable that the lightning flow will cost at least a third of a card to create, right? So it does feel like to get the Quick Strike effect, you are paying a full card into it. So instead of looking at it as like a 2 for 7, you look at it as for 2 for 7 and a card. And then it doesn't seem as insane anymore. It's good, but it doesn't seem crazy overrated. I think where it can get really, really scary is if you get to set up the Go Again on the previous turn, like start this on Embodiment of Lightning, and then do a crazy turn that includes this. That's when it can seem wild. But I mean, that's like a payoff for setting up, right?
Yeah. Also,
that's my read on this card.
I agree, but also, like, what are you doing with the additional resource? So
yeah,
Scorpio is a free attack, right? So it's not like you have Reaping Blade. Like, Reaping Blade would be great, right? You like, okay, I have my, like, your Mothrian Skies, for instance, or even Mothrian Sky. Like, you have your Embodiment of Lightning. That's the perfect, right? From where you've created that, I'll start the turn with it. Pitch my blue, attack with this, then attack with Reaping Blade, and that's like a massive, massive value play. But you don't have that, so I think there is some balance to this card for sure.
Yeah, it's either she has some outlet for which costs 1, which so far, I mean, we've seen the Runeblade Legendary Arms, and we know Grasp exists. They both cost 2. So that's not it. The hero ability costs 2. So either she has some other sink for the 1 resource, or she has a way to generate the extra resource in a way that's somewhat consistent. Which, again, that's also why I'm wondering whether we have a chess piece similar to Dead Threads, where it's regarding lightning flows, rather than like what Death Threads does. Oh, like Blood Splattered Vest type thing.
Well, speaking of Lightning Runeblade cards, should we get on to the next one, Pankaj?
Arcanic Reproach. 0 cost blue Lightning Runeblade instant aura that blocks 3. Yeah, Runeblade's getting an instant that blocks 3. There you go, and it's blue. The first time an opposing hero deals damage to you each turn, you may reveal a lightning card from your hand. If you do, deal 1 arcane damage to them. At the start of your action phase, destroy an aura you control.
Dude, I get why they banned Channel Lightning Valley. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, Seal will be insane with this. I mean, it's also blue lightning, a like really good blue pitch card that's lightning that blocks 3. An aura you control can include lightning flows, of course, because they are auras. Can include stray embodiments of lightning. Can include stray rune chants if Aurora is in the business of creating rune chants. Card reads really good. I mean, just the stat line: blue lightning, block 3. I'm like really good. Gives her more reach. She already has Burn Up Shock, which, was something that she would sometimes close games with when she was legal in CC. So she still has that, plus potentially has this for extra reach. And then depending on, again, the lightning flow generation, you could just leave this around and have this be just a very strong blue that deals your opponent with 3 or 4 arcane damage over the course of a few turns, because it's reveal a lightning card, right? Like, that's the clause to actually deal the damage. And destroying the aura is for, like, keeping it around. So, I don't know, seems like it could be strong. Depending, again, on just the aura generation.
I think this card's fine. I think this card feels to me like a Majestic that's positioned for the set itself. So this is really good against Ward, right? It really messes up like what your opponent's trying to do with Ward and things like that. I think this card is. I agree. It's a base level. The floor is okay because it's a blue 3-block lightning instant. But I think this card is potentially just whatever.
Yeah. Honestly, I was a bit salty looking at the stat line because it's really good into Marlin. Like, overpower. So it's just like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll just block my 3-block instant and my action and my Runeblade Fridge. And it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, and my Fridge all plus my Sigil of Suffering or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, I was a bit annoyed when I saw that stat line. But yeah, we know these heroes want to pitch. And because of that, a big question, aside from all the lightning flow generation that we keep talking about, but is also, what's a blue base looking like, right? Because these heroes that pitch are often made or broken based on whether they have playable blues. And I would say this is a very playable blue. I think this current funnel, Blink, are in this category of strong cards to have in your blue base. So I think this just enters that category.
Sure. All right. Up next, we're going to talk about Gauntlet of Sword and Sorcery. Of course, this is our Runeblade equipment. Arms legendary, has 0 block. 0 defense, you say? Well, action, 2 resources. Tap this and your hero. The next attack action card you play this turn gets, when this attacks, deal 1 arcane damage to any opposing target. If damage is dealt this way, this gets +1 attack. Go again. Arcane barrier 1. So, first of all, just a really nice Nullrune Globs, first of all. But Pankaj, how relevant do you think this ability is to give up something like Grasp of the Arknight, which of course, this is representing a potential 2 value, or at least splitting damage that makes it really difficult for opponents to have to deal with. But is there any things beyond that come to mind for you?
Yeah. So right off the bat, you lose 3 defense, right? So assuming the Arcane Barrier is not relevant, you lose 3 defense compared to something like Grasp. Mm-hmm. In return, you get the potential for more damage per activation. So you kind of need 3, this thing to sort of land 3 times. You need the arcane damage to be dealt by this 3 times to match what you're going to get out of Grasp, unconditionally, basically. So off the bat, seems like weaker Grasp unless you really need the arcane barrier. However, 1 arcane damage to any opposing target.
Yeah.
So kind of, in the same vein of just screwing over the high seas heroes for no reason, like how the previous one screwed over Marlin because it's a blue instant that blocks 3. This one kind of screws over Puffin, right? Oh my god, you just play Puffin and your Parrot gets sniped on turn 0 because it just gets killed and the attack gets +1. Also could be very good into stuff like Rigor Mortis. Mm-hmm. Rigor Mortis is the only ally I can think of, obviously, that this is good into, unless there's other cards that are dealing 1 arcane damage to any target, then you can combine them and maybe snipe off a 2 health ally or something. But I think into Gravy you might still just prefer Grasp, but into something like Puffin or into a deck that you need Arcane Barrier, this card's very good. Yeah,
we've also just seen Caress of the Reaper get previewed today or late yesterday. I think it was early today for me, which is Runeblade action attack majestic, 5 attack, and it says when this deals damage to a hero, destroy target aura they control. So that one obviously just with combining with Gauntlet of Sword and Sorcery has 2 on hit effects effectively. That sort of Gauntlet of Sword and Sorcery is giving it. I don't know if there's any other cards that can leverage that.
Well, the quick strike cards, right? Actually, if you look at Tempestuous Kiss, for example, it's you can't just prevent the if say you activate Gauntlet and then you attack with Tempestuous Kiss and you give the Tempestuous Kiss go again somehow, it's going to be dealing 2 instances of 1 arcane, which means they actually do need to give up a full card to prevent the arcane. They can't just pop their Tunic, for example, and then AB the 1 on Tempestuous Kiss. Now they need to actually AB 1 twice because they also need to AB the Gauntlet. Otherwise, the Tempestuous Kiss on pain effect will still go through. So there's effects like this. there's the other quick strike cards, right?
Yeah, Dashing Flashfoot is the embodiment of lightning.
Dashing Flashfoot, Prophetic Quick Step. And those do cost 1 as well.
Yeah, they do.
So say, it feels like there potentially is a floor where you activate a Gauntlet, you send the 1 for 3 that doesn't have go again, because you couldn't manage to give it go again. But you still sort of get the split damage with the on hit of create Embodiment of Lightning or create a Ponder.
Very interesting. Okay, so we've got some cards that maybe pair really well with this, actually, which we'll find out more about. Where are we off to next, Pankaj?
Let's move on to some wizard cards. We've covered Illusionist and Runeblade. So let's talk about a wizard card. The one that I kind of really wanted to talk about, actually. I mean, there's obviously a lot. There's some interesting ones like Echo Flash and stuff, but I think those are still missing some key pieces. What I wanted to talk about was Arc Ramp, and I think this was the card that, to me, unless it's just a limited card, but if... I'm going to rephrase that. If this is actually playable in CC, I think it really leads to the idea of Acilio being a Strider's tall arcane type deck.
Yeah.
And Arc Ramp can be quite scary. I mean, so it's quite flexible already, right? You don't need to destroy Lightning Flow because AM3 can still work on instants. So you could Arc Ramp, play some instant arcane speed effect, arcane damage effect, and then you still leverage the AM3. You don't need to have a tall arcane spell. But if you do have Lightning Flow and a tall arcane, it feels really scary. Like you could just, say, play the... I forget what the card is called. The one where if you have a sigil around, it deals 6 arcane. But if you play
Power Spell.
Glyph Power Spell, yeah. So if you play this, and suddenly you have, and like Burn Bear exists as well, just in the generic wizard pool. Suddenly, like Acilio is going to be able to do, say, 8 or 9 arcane damage, like consistently. That's like pretty scary for a deck that has Striders, and Acilio's at 38 health as well, right? Brocilio, the new one.
Yep.
So has a bit more of a life buffer as well. So that could be. It was just a potential archetype of Acilio that stuck out to me when I read Arc Ramp. That makes me a little bit like, whoa, this could be very strong.
I might need some convincing this isn't just a limited card, but I think we'll find out very soon.
Could be. It very well could be. It again, yeah, it depends on the other stuff. If he's still a Lightning Greaves gotten a Flash deck, then you probably won't be playing this. But I mean, some of the other cards he's gotten are also tall arcane stuff, like Core Reaction, for example. That's an instant, but it is 4 arcane damage to start the turn. So, and turn to Mindfire, right? Deal 5 arcane. If it deals damage, then you create a Ponder. You have to tap it here and create a Ponder. That's another tall arcane spell. Glyph Power Spell came out in Compendium. It's another tall arcane spell. So it's like, if his theme is juice up arcane damage, like do massive arcane damage spells, it's like, ooh, like Striders looks really appealing.
Yeah, speaking of Ponder tokens, the next card I wanted to take a look at was the Third Eye of the Sphinx, which is our first... have we seen hybrid legendaries before?
I don't think so.
No, this is new for us, right? So Third Eye of the Sphinx is a illusionist / wizard equipment head. It is 1 defense. It has Blade Break and also Spell Void 1, and it says instant, 1 resource, tap it, destroy a Ponder token you control, draw a card. So if we're creating Ponder tokens in sort of ways while we're just also doing our core game plan of dealing damage, and we have a nice resource left over, we can also draw another card immediately to potentially do some of that instant shenanigans like you spoke about. This card's really interesting to me, and the fact that it's not just a wizard card, also has the illusionist overlay, and also is that 1 resource we spoke about, that 2+1 kind of resource curve. This card is really... I love drawing cards, and I think this card is really exciting to me.
I was very confused. I'm just very curious about the illusionist tag on this, because Acilio has Ponder token on his hero ability, right? It literally says he creates Ponder tokens. Ziggy, so far, we haven't seen Ponder token generation in that hero, so I'm curious why this says illusionist on it as well. And also the cost curve wise on Ziggy, feels like Ziggy wants to pay 2 for the hero ability and then pay 1 for the weapon. So where are they getting this extra resource from? Whereas for Acilio, you can sort of see it because the hero ability costs 2, but Acilio's weapon is free. So then you're like, okay, clean cost curve to immediately get the card draw, which opens up a lot of space. What I really like about the design of this is that oftentimes when you look at other cards that create Ponders, I'm thinking like Premeditate and Ranger, I'm thinking like Codexes, you're so incentivized to like fully empty your hand. It's a little bit... There's an element of it where it plays itself because you're like, oh, if you want to leverage a Ponder token, you have to make sure your hand's empty. So it feels like a bit of decision making is like taken away there because it's obvious you just want to have an empty hand when your Ponder pops. But this potentially changes that. This actually gives you more decision making where do you want to block in such a way where you leverage a Ponder and draw an arsenal, or do you want to make some sort of play where you actually cash in a Ponder token right now and leave your arsenal choice a little bit more open? I don't know. It feels like it feels there's a lot of decisions potentially baked into this equipment piece. I think that's really cool.
The funny thing for me about this being illusionist is that the ways that you make Ponder tokens, I mean, the best way to make a Ponder token as illusionist would be Diadem of the Dream State, which is an illusionist equipment headpiece. If everyone can remember this, it's a Ward 2 illusionist equipment head. It says once per turn, when this or another non-token permanent you control with Ward is destroyed, you may pay a resource. If you do, create a ponder token. And it's like, and then also there's actually another one. This isn't as good, but there's Silken Shroud, which is also the illusionist equipment head, which is a Ward 1, and when it's destroyed, create a ponder token. So it's just outside of that, though, there's not really, I think Dissolve Reality is the only illusionist way that you can create a ponder token. I'm
True.
like, okay.
Yeah.
But that's not very,
that's not
very exciting.
Lightning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of ponder tokens in Wizard, though, so Auxiliary Hero ability has it, but there was also a Majestic spoiled for creating ponder tokens.
Yes.
Tome of Quandaries,
Yeah.
which is a 0-cost Wizard instant that comes in blue and blocks for 2. So we are starting to just see instances straight up block.
Very good.
Blocks for 2, though.
Power creep.
And it says create 2 ponder tokens, which is obviously typically pretty bad because you can only Arsenal 1, right? So you're getting 2 ponder tokens, you draw 2, you get a bit of Arsenal selection, I suppose. But straight up, this instant already like replaces itself, right? Because you play it, a ponder token replaces itself, so it's never like card negative as long as you can play it on an empty hand. But then that means this headpiece, Third Eye of the Sphinx, gets pretty interesting with that, because you can actually cash in one of these ponders immediately for drawing a card right now. And that would be cool, but at the same time, it's an instant, so you almost wonder whether you want to pair this with a Cilios hero ability, but then that will create an extra ponder token. Then you have like 3 ponders. You can turn one of them into a card with Third Eye, but what are you doing with the other one? The other excess one that you have. So I don't know, lots of questions going on. I wonder whether the Tome is playable, to be honest.
I've got a solution for you. Pearl Amulet. Get that Pearl Amulet down.
Oh!
Untap your
cooking.
hero, and then start. Dude, I'm not even kidding. Like, I actually think
you're
it could
cooking,
be,
as they say.
It could be decent. Maybe tit for tat starts to get to see play. I doubt that's going to happen, but yeah, very interesting. Right, where are we next, Pankaj?
I want to move on to start talking about some generic Lightning cards, because I think they start to give us a few linchpin pieces for all the heroes. Starting with, I think, what is so far to me reads like the strongest main deck card that we have seen so far. Flow State Embodiment. 0-cost, lightning attack at red. Comes in for 4, blocks for 3. Brilliant stat line. You love that stat line. And it says, whenever you play an instant card this chain link, create embodiment of lightning or lightning flow token. Key point. It's not the first time you play an instant card this chain link. It's whenever you play an instant card this chain link. So this card, gosh, there's a few things I want to say about this. One, it reads to me so far like the strongest piece, because it's answering that very critical piece of lightning flow generation for these heroes. You play this, you play 2 instants, it's immediately 2 lightning flows that you just get for free, no other like hoops required, which I think is going to be very strong. But sort of because of that, this just goes back to what we were talking about last week, about the delta between certain cards and how powerful they seem, and how that affects how the game feels depending on how early you see it. And I just imagine in some sort of these Omens hero mirrors, you're like, oh, my opponent saw flow state turn 0 and I didn't see mine by like turn 4 and I just got snowballed out. Like, this is the sort of card that reads to me as potentially leading to those sort of game states where, or those sort of games where it feels so different based on how early they see their flow state and how many instances they see it with. That part concerns me a little bit, but the card reads incredibly strong. I'd be shocked if it's not straight up 3-off in all 3 decks.
Card is very good. Yeah, it makes you even think about things as a Runeblade lover. You know, someone who likes getting my Runeblade thoughts on is like, yeah, I'm good with an extra. We were talking about it before. If you got a couple of embodiment of lightnings floating around, maybe I dirge one of them, for instance, because I just get extra value. Or I'm like, okay, I play this, I have a pump in my hand, plus I have the blink. Well, I'm just going to cash the blink in for my action point, get my additional, plus I'm going to play my pump on this one anyway, just to push damage over. I'm going to get my additional embodiment of lightning, and then I might dib with dirge, or I might, maybe I'm playing things like Splintering Deadwood. I don't know. That might be a bit of a reach, but yeah, I think it's very good. It's very versatile. It's a 0-4 with 3 block. It gives you what you need to. Sometimes you just play this. You play the pump over the top. You create your bottom lightning, set up for next turn. Like, fine.
Yeah. Or like in Ziggy, I could totally see Ziggy. It's just like, okay, play this, play like 2 or 3 instants and be like, cool, now they're just set up with like 3 lightning flows for the next few turns.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, and like starts like that would just be like, oh, okay, my opponent just had like that nut start, and it feels, I could see how that leads like kind of feels bad. Or like, oh, you don't see this, and you're like, yeah, I'm just like lightning flow starved.
Yeah, this feels like the marquee card of the set.
It's like if Loan Shark was good. Like imagine if Loan Shark was good, and then all these pirates are like, oh, it matters how early they see the Loan Shark, and it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. Loan Shark's not terrible. But anyway, a card that
it's no flow state embodiment.
That's true. A card that I really like next, Static Shelter. This is a lightning defense reaction at yellow, costs 0, defense of 3, and says when this defends, you may pay 1. If you do, create a lightning flow token. There we go. We're seeing how to create some lightning flow tokens. Although, along with, of course, a flow state embodiment, it's not the most economic. Although we know there's some ways to use your 2 additional resources. So I think this card is very good.
This reads to me as a Ziggy card. This feels like, what was his defense reaction? What was the defense reaction in MST that only Enigma played? There was like a blue defense reaction.
Yeah, cost 3, and if you pitch a thing for you draw a card. I can't remember what it's called. Yep.
Yeah, there was that, but there was also a blue 0 for 2 defense reaction that she wanted to play so that she can transcend on the opponent's turn. Because she was the only one that actually was down to transcend on the opponent's turn.
Oh.
The others wanted to transcend on their own
Big
turn.
Blue Sky. I'm a big Blue Sky fan.
Yeah, exactly. That one too. So Static Shelter to me is in that same category where I definitely don't think Aurora is playing this. Acilio, like potentially, but I'm gonna be doubtful in that. But Ziggy to me is just like, oh, this just reads like it's just Big Blue Sky all over again, where Enigma's the only one who wants to play it and is really strong in that deck when she plays it. And to me, this feels like a Ziggy card. They play this, they play whatever ward they want to pay the 1 extra for lightning flow, and are like just super setup.
Cool. Right, where to next? We got to move through these, and we're not going to cover them all.
Let's go to Beckoning Brilliance. That's another one where, I feel like it's very easy to overlook because it says rare and it says block 2. But the text on it seems like I feel like it could be CC playable. So Beckoning Brilliance, cost 0, red, lightning action attack. Attacks for 4, blocks for 2. But it says when this attacks, the next instant card you play this chain link costs 1 less to play. Which, as long as you can leverage the 1 resource, it's kind of a 0 for 5. Oftentimes, if it makes it a lot less awkward for you to play a 1-cost instant, it can end up feeling like a better 0 for 5, honestly, because sometimes pitching a whole card is like way more than just like like 1 card. So this card, to me, feels like it could sneakily be pretty freaking insane, actually. At least in Ziggy and Acilio. Probably not Aurora.
I'm really excited to play my Art of War off this. Yeah, no, I think this card is. I think this card's good. I'm interested to see if we get some 1-cost instance that I'm more excited to play right now. I think that's probably the one challenge, but we'll see what we get. We've seen
Ziggy
obviously
has the one from and Ziggy has the one from the Armory deck as well, right? A Starter Spike costs 0. No, it gives the resource. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, Livewire Press is the kind of the one that costs 1 that maybe is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Circular Flow Tide, actually.
Yeah.
Would be kind of insane.
I'm on the lookout for more, though.
For sure.
Right.
I mean, Acilio is like Echo Flash, but yeah.
Yeah. So next up is Helm of Astral Sanctuary. This is a generic equipment head, costs 0, and it's part of a cycle. I want to just quickly touch on this because it's part of a cycle that I think is quite interesting for limited at least, which and they all say instant, tap your hero, destroy this, prevent the next one damage you'd be dealt to you this turn. I think this just shows a signal of how the limited format is going to play in terms of protecting your lightning flow tokens, and I just think it's really cool. I think it's really interesting. I think it's something different in terms of the way that the limited format is going to play. And when I look at the last 3 talented sets, so I'm including High Seas and MST.
No.
Yeah, MST. And now this, I think these are some of the things I really like about these limited formats, is the kind of interesting interaction between the equipment and the macro, and then also your key resource within the format as well. So whether that's Mystic, whether that's Gold, whether that's now Lightning Flow tokens. So yeah, very cool.
It's so interesting how every time there's arcane damage in the set, they seem to come up with a new way to deal with it. Like Rosetta had a macro, obviously, and Rosetta had some life gain as well. And in this one, we already have, the macro, which doesn't by itself give you an outlet to like prevent damage the way the Rosetta macro did, but makes your lightning flows have Spell Void 1. So your natural resource generation is now also your defense against these things, but there's a very natural push and pull for whether you actually want to use the Spell Void to save your life, or whether you want to save your lightning flow for some offense. And then these Astral Sanctuary cycle as well, definitely going to be pretty high picks, because it basically reads like save yourself a lightning flow, kind of, if you squint a little bit. But also I want to point out generic. And one of the first things that came to mind to me was that now everyone has a way to have a piece of equipment that they can give up for one of these to like help their Syndra matchup. Because that's something we saw was happening, like for example, Acilio, right? They were literally, instead of running Flash of Billions, they were running Cap of Quick Thinking for the Syndra matchup. We know like Lyth, for example, is running Quelling Slippers, but that's also because they have an extra intellect, so that makes sense. But we were seeing some cases of heroes opting for prevention effects on their equipment for the Syndra matchup, and I think just being generic and being access to everyone, I could see fringe cases where you actually want to run it. I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah. Okay, next up is Feral Instinct. This is a brute action attack at Majestic. It's yellow, costs 3, or does it? It has 6 attack and defense of 3, and says, if you've intimidated an opponent this turn, this costs 3 less to play. You can see why I think Alice is pretty happy that Mandible Claws are gone, because this at the end of a Bloodrush Bellows turn, just as a 1-card 6, would be absolutely nuts.
Well, it'll be a 1-card 8.
Sure, sorry, yeah, 1-card
Blood Rush.
But yeah, additional on top, I guess. And I think this card is still really good, and I think opens up some new avenues for Rhinar, but maybe also other brutes potentially with Intimidate cards, because this gives you more incentive to potentially play some Intimidate cards. But yeah, I think, dude, I do genuinely think like some sort of Rhinar combo is like maybe back on the cards, and I'm interested in Time Snap Potion coming back into my life again, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, this card does read really, really freaking strong. I saw some people theory crafting, oh, you like barraging beatdown you play this. I actually don't think that's like very strong, because then they'll just put 2 cards in front of it, and you just did a 2-card 6 then.
Yeah, just swing your club.
But yeah,
if you're gonna do it.
But when it's like Blood Rush level, or some other, like maybe he becomes a bit more of a Wild Ride deck again. I'm not too sure. I don't think his blue base can support it, but we'll see. This card does seem quite scary off the bat.
Yeah, I do genuinely. I think this is more of a play as additional damage on big turns. That's where it's scariest to me, because most of the time, if you played this with without swinging your weapon, you probably should have just swung the weapon. But when you add this on top of swinging the weapon, so it's like, I go to my Scabskins. I have 2 action points. Here's Bloodrush Bellows. Here's another source of Intimidate. Swing my club, and then you're just like, oh, my last card is a 0, like a 1-card 8, like we just spoke about. That's where it gets really scary. And otherwise, it's just Rhinar often just plays like kind of average yellows to be 6 cost resource cards, and this one is like really good. So this is one of the cards I've probably gotten most excited about in a very long time for Rhinar.
Let's move on and talk about the Shuriken cycle that we've got. We've got 3 Shurikens for the ninjas over here. They all are legendary, and they all have the same stat line. I suppose they're all blue, 0 costs. 1 attack, instant items, because they're shurikens, that block 2. So not only do we have instants that block, now we have instants and items that are also blocking. So they're definitely expanding the design space there. But yeah, so all 0 cost blue, and their items, they block for 2, they attack for 1. They have action on them where you pay 1 and you tap the shuriken and you destroy it when the combat chain closes, and you can attack with it, and it has go again. So basically like a one-time use Kodachi is what we can think of all these shurikens once you get them on the field. But they all have their own effect. Evasive Nageboshi has, this can't be defended by equipment or reaction cards. Razor Ring has, when this hits a hero, the next action card they defend with this combat chain gets -1 defense until end of turn. So like a combination of Spider's Bite and or Beta Clast, basically. And then Stun Star has, when this hits a hero, tap them. So 3 different shurikens, pretty interesting. You can't trigger Katsu off of them because they're not attack action cards. They are items. But they can, of course, and you also can't Mask of the Pouncing Lynx off of them. But of course, you do get to extend your combat chain with these. And perhaps maybe it gives other ninjas a reason to play Windcutter, which is the arm piece released in Compendium that lets the hero tutor out a shuriken.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about these cards so far. So far, all the things I've thought of, like where they could be good, they're just, to me, I'm just like, not quite good enough. I look at these.
Razor Ring. I don't know.
Yeah.
Razor Ring, I feel like I could see that being pretty good. And Stun Star, actually, depending on the hero you're against, could be pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I'm not convinced yet. Also, there's Defend 2, which makes me a little bit sad, but we'll see.
True.
Next up is Crash Site Salvage, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that card is so good. Okay.
Yes.
Yellow, 0 cost, Pirate Mech, action, attack. Attacks for 3, blocks for 3. So yellow, attack for 3, already a little bit overrate. And then Scrap. Oh, I guess it's not overrate because it's naturally have go again, but okay. Scrap. When this attacks, if it scrapped a card, this gets go again. If a cog was scrapped this way, create a gold token. So that's where the 0 for 3 go again and yellow comes in. If you scrap a cog and you create a gold token as well, potentially, this card is incredibly strong to me.
Yeah, I wonder if, like... So the downside to this card, right, is it's like a 0 for 3, go again, that creates a gold. It kind of puts you into the view of, like, needing to attack. Like, in terms of, like, you know, like, it's not just something you can get an additional benefit of. It's damage. And I don't know if, like, that's what Puffin wants. I think it might be, but I'm not 100% sold.
I think she wants gold gen.
I agree.
Good gold gen.
It's gold gen, but yeah. I almost wish, like, could Puffin have slightly different gold gen that's like a different effect that isn't 3 damage? Do you know what I mean? Like, that almost might be what I want.
I see. I
like,
know what you're saying.
Yeah. Could I create a cog? Could this be a non-attack action that creates me like a normal cog and a golden cog? Too good, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, I think this card's obviously really good and is needed. Like, gold generation is needed for Puffin.
I also like seeing a return to Scrap. I think we've mentioned before about like keywords that we only see once, and it's nice to like have a revisit of previous keywords in new sets.
It's a cool card.
I like this card. I think it's very strong. Yeah.
I think we've got time for 2 more expansion slots. So which 2 do you want to hit? I've got the one. We can hit 3 maybe, but where do you want to go next?
Okay. I'm gonna hit the 2 Ranger ones, and I feel like we gotta talk about the log, right? I don't think we can not talk about Betsy's log.
Okay, you get 1 Ranger card in log then.
Okay, fine.
Or okay, here you go.
The bill.
Pankaj, talk about the Ranger cards. I'll bring them up in succession. You just go for it. How about that?
Cool. Yeah. All right. So we have settled the bill. 1 cost Ranger action that blocks for 3. So that's pretty awesome. You may put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal. If you do until end of turn, it gets +3 power. And when this hits a hero, destroy a card in their arsenal. And this action has go again. So on the surface, when I first read this, I was like, the resource curve is really awkward because Marlin wants to activate the cannon. Obviously, I'm speaking about in Marlin because I don't think Riptide will play this. So in Marlin, the resource curve of activating cannon, sending a harpoon already costs 6 resources. And typically the tunic I found is kind of there to like just help you with some turn cycles where you didn't draw the proper 2 blues. You drew like a codex and a blue, and so the tunic helps you bail out of that, or it pays for your 3 of a kind. Like, the tunic resource I found is already pretty taxed in Marlin, so this seems like another tax to it. But I think there is another very strong use case to this card, why I think it definitely warrants testing in Marlin and maybe makes any final lists, is that it gives you plays on turn where you either don't have a way to load, or you just, again, don't have the resources to actually activate the cannon. Like, I could totally see this being, I pitch my blue, I play Subtle Bill, and I send my King Shark for 9. I didn't activate the cannon, so it doesn't have the overpower the Goldfish effect, but it still is disruptive. It's a 9 power CNC, basically. And it let me load, which I think could be very strong. Or, Battering Bolt is a card that is kind of meta right now with all the reactions and instants going around. So you play Subtle Bill, send your Battering Bolt for 9 as well. That seems pretty strong to me. So I could see that being the place of this card, alongside some turns you have your Tunic to pay for this. But it also blocks 3, so the floor is, I want to say, decent. Reds and Marlin are very premium, so that's a big ask. But I could see this card, for the reasons I mentioned, find its way into the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll talk about Red Lure Harpoon, which was our spoiler card. Standard blue Harpoon costs 2, attacks for 4, blocks for 3. Has, if you've activated a cannon this turn, this gets, when this hits the hero, banish a red action card from the graveyard. You may play it until the end of your next turn. I mean, that just seems basically on hit kind of draw a card. I think there are a fair number of matchups where you may not find something good to steal. Like I'm thinking like a Marionette or something. They've only played like Saber Bloodshed and some reactions. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about looking at both these cards is I do wonder whether it just makes her already good matchups even better. Like I'm like, oh, into Syndra and stuff. Yeah, Subtle Bill probably really good. Red Leo Harpoon also really, really good. But does it improve her matchups that she's not good into, like the Assassins, like Mario? I don't know. That kind of needs to be seen so far. That's my take on the Ranger cards. But I'm definitely very happy with Red Leo Harpoon for sure. Very strong upgrade for the deck. Settle the Bill. Gonna have to see how it plays.
That's my one concern. I think I'm just not sold on the Harpoon. I want to talk about Lion Claw Maul because I really want to play Lyeth. Like massively want to play Lyeth. And I think there's a lot of interesting conversation around this card around like this does nothing, it's not relevant, it's not important. I think this card is actually pretty good. I think the challenge is that this obviously costs 2 as well. So a lot of conversations around like what are you doing with your extra resource and things like that. Of course, once you like kind of swing in with this card, you can keep it looping, right, to an extent. Like if you keep hitting with it, you keep creating mind tokens, you can keep swinging it and keep creating mind tokens. It is a 3 attack weapon for Lyeth, right? In terms of the fact that it'll its base is just 1, but it gets the +1 and the +1, 1 off the weapon and 1 off the mind token. I do wonder if there's a build of Lyeth that looks a little bit different that can support this, because I do think this is inherently quite a powerful weapon. It's just whether it's going to be good enough for Lyeth.
Revolting Gesture was a card that I thought fits in Lyeth, and it's definitely a card that I toyed around with, I brewed with, which does work with the cost curve of the weapon.
Yes, it does.
I think my issue with this weapon is, okay, while I do think it's good, my issue is just that I think Lyeth's problem, like why I think he doesn't see a lot of play, at least the aggressive version doesn't see play. I mean, we saw the fatigue version make top 8, but the aggressive version doesn't see play is because the problem is those turns where your auras are popping and you didn't draw an attack. And this doesn't solve that. I know some people are saying, oh, 2 cost, and your Lyeth plays a bunch of yellows, so you can use that to pitch. But those yellows are your powerful Guardian attacks that you're attacking with anyway when your auras are popping. Yeah. So it doesn't solve that problem, which to me is his biggest problem.
But at least you play more of them. At least you play more of them. Because you can pitch them to do the weapon thing.
I suppose. I just feel like any turn I'm pitching one of those cards for the weapon, like for the weapon to like have any sort of threat on it, I feel like I would have rather have just sent that attack. But you just get to, no. What I'm saying is you just get to pitch the yellow to. You can play more yellows because you can just use them to pitch the weapon and just attack the weapon. Block with 3 cards, or use activate your ability. Block with a couple of cards. Send this. So. Or play your pump onto this. Play 1 single pump as opposed to all pumps. So I do think so instead of playing 30-something blues, you just... Okay.
Yeah, I think you can play slightly more yellows, potentially. Yeah. And you can also play, because of the resource curve, does it allow you to maybe play stuff like Lead with Heart, for instance? I don't know. This is like what I'm quite interested in. Is it good? I don't know. But I think it's something that is piquing my interest.
Yeah, it's interesting. I could see maybe be a bit more aggressive with the blue base, and then you just want 1 blue a turn for your opponent's turn, so you can activate your ability and Rampart. Excuse me. And your turn you have the yellow. I mean, it also opens up some of the yellow Majestics that we haven't seen play. The block card, Trick or Trickery, and then also Fix the Match, which I think are really, really interesting yellows that don't see play because of yellows, and the cost curve is really weird with like Titan's Fist. So I could see that maybe being a direction you could bring the deck in.
Okay, do you want to talk quickly about Power Driver before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we'll be remiss not to talk about this. I think this might be the strongest card we have seen so far. like straight up fundamentally strongest card in the set that we've seen so far. Like I know I brought up Flow State Embodiment earlier, but that was like within the non-expansion slot cards, within the main thing. I think if this didn't say Betsy specialization, it'd be absolutely insanely crazy busted.
It'd be playable.
But even with Betsy specialization, I mean, I don't know. It's like it's an on-board way for her to just like deal 7 overpower. Like that seems pretty good. I think this is
2 cards 7
overpower
though.
Swings in
2 cards 7 overpower.
Yeah, it's on board though.
Yeah.
That's like really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. I don't think it's like single-handedly brings into relevance, but this is a sort of piece that I think would be the culprit if she does become very meta-relevant.
Yeah, maybe.
You seem so skeptical. I'm like, what about this is like not good to you?
The fact you have to use two, like, one of Guardian's biggest strengths is like using a single card for an attack, right? With a weapon, and this is a very different style, which might be fine. I think that I'm really glad they've gone with that view of like move away from just being tied in fist decks or whatever, stuff like that. And I'm very interested in what that looks like. Is overpower good enough? I don't know. We'll find out.
But she also, I mean, it has a sledge resource curve, right? So she also just straight up has the play pattern of, okay, Tunic, pitch a blue, send 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she can just do that every 3 turns.
Yep. I just don't know if it's good enough. We'll see. I think Betsy's still missing a lot of things, but we'll see. I don't.
For sure.
I do think Pile Driver is the turning point, but we'll see.
Yeah. Betsy's giving me Riptide vibes, where I feel like every set or every other set we see like this strong spec for her, and then we're just like waiting for her to be good.
Yeah. Still waiting.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, okay, I don't know. Just like some of the specializations that we've seen from her, like Drink Game Under the Table is actually pretty fucking good. So, yeah. So
maybe we're getting close.
We're like on the Riptide path.
Maybe we're getting close. Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to add on Omens before we wrap up this episode? It's been a longer one, but we've covered a number of great cards, which has been super exciting.
Yeah, give us a Riptide weapon on the level of Pile Driver, and I'll just main that hero.
Absolutely not. All right, that has been episode 265 of Arsenal Pass, our first real deep dive into Omens of the Third Age and taking a look at some of these preview cards we've received so far. Many more to come over the next week, and of course, next weekend is the world premiere. You will get an episode from us next week, starting to focus a little bit more on Limited, touching on some additional previews that we get over the next few days. And the following week, of course, before we hit that pre-release weekend, we are finally back to a Limited format, a Limited set with Omens. And that means, of course, our Arsenal Pass Limited set reviews are back. We will be releasing that not next week, but the following week, so look out for that. Big thank you to all the Arsenal Pass patrons. And until next week, we will see you in the next episode.